engage. There you go. Perfect. You follow lure a little bit. Just kind of lure around in a loop. Just get a couple of lures. Oh. Yeah. So, good. Perfect.
Yes.
Excellent. And then do the other. And you're going back over the head, right? So remember, control the head. So with the dog's going this way and you come back over their head, they're going to do that, right? So as you go out there you go.
Yes.
Just arc it. The other thing is it'll be easier if you hold the food kind of in the flat of your hand instead of hold it in the end of your fingers, right? So you don't have to pinch it way up here. Just kind of hold it with your thumb and finger so it's here. So when you give it, you just give it off the flat of your hand instead of out the end of your fingers, especially for the highly motivated dogs. You get bit a lot less. And it also, you're going to find when we start trying to do kind of more complicated stuff, is that it'll be easier to control the dog's head. If I'm holding it like this, a lot of times the dogs try to go around the edges. And so I'm trying to lure their head straight, and they're kind of coming in from the side, so now their heads turn sideways. So when I go to try to teach behaviors, I want to be able to control and keep their nose facing directly forward. So I tend to hold the food in my hand like this so they can push right against it, and I can control their nose exactly the way I want them to go. Okay? Then you're going to come over here, take in your, which it doesn't matter, whichever hand you're comfortable with, and just go straight ahead onto it. Yes. Right?
Yes.
And so it's easier if you, like, instead of trying to reverse your hand like that, just loop the dog around. So the dog's here, ready, and then you just go forward and onto it, right? So instead of standing there and pulling the dog towards you onto it, just have the dog follow like this, around, and then just straight away from you and onto it, just like that. So right there's perfect, just right onto it from there. Yes. Yes. And right when that foot hits, yes, and reward, right? Because the behavior we're trying to capture here is their making them aware of their feet. So the feet should be your trigger, right?
Yes.
There you go. And their feet hit, you mark that, you let them have the piece of food. So they're following it in your hand, their feet hit it, yes, you open your hand, they get it, right?
She's hungry this morning.
Good.
Yes.
Good. And the other thing is, with these kinds of behaviors, you can feed her a couple times there. Say good and feed her again while her feet are on it. So instead of stepping away, you got her on it, say yes, yes. And now give her a good, good. Right? So remember both markers. We have two. One is keep staying there, so that's a perfect time to start showing them the difference. I can hit it, say yes, boom, you can pop off.
Yes.
Or I can, good girl.
Good, twin.
There we go.
Good.
And then just say yes and spin her off of it.
Yes.
Good, just like that, right? So then we just release her off of it as you go. That's beautiful. Now, you notice that this is, like, she's controlling the dog's body and height of their head, whether or not they're standing or laying down, by controlling the dog's head. So she goes in a straight line forward, and she's directly in front of the dog's head about shoulder height, and when those front feet hit, bang, she's got it. And the dog's standing nicely on it. If my hands are too high, then the dog's going to do it, or my hands are too low, the dog's going to start to try to overshoot. Perfect.
Now, do I say, okay, watch me.
Mm-hmm.
So I say yes now, yes?
No, yes, after her feet touch, right?
But then if I want her to stay, I can still say good?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So you could say good there, because anytime we're going to reward the dog in place and they're going to continue to do the behavior that we want, you can use good, right? Yes releases the dog, says you don't have to keep doing this. Here, it doesn't matter too much because my hand is right there, so the dog's going to be able to access it. And if they stepped off the thing after I said yes, it wouldn't make any difference, right? If I really wanted them to hold it there, I would say good. Later on in other behaviors, it's going to matter more, right? It's going to matter more that I'm clear about when I want them to stay and when I want them to break out of the position. So if we're doing a down and I'm standing up, it definitely matters whether I say yes or good. Because if I say yes, my dog's going to jump up and come running over to get their reward. And if I want them to hold it, then I would say good and go to them and give their reward in place. But for this, the purposes of this, it doesn't make that much difference, right, which one you use. The dog is in the position, they're getting rewarded. If they stepped off after you said yes, it wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah. Yes, and then jump away. So she's on there, and then if she wants her to stay there, she'd lure her on. Good. And then feed her a couple times. Good.
So I don't
now she's holding it. Now, yes, and spin her off.
Yes.
Good. And she just releases, lets her, when she says yes, she just lets the dog know she can break off and chase the food, right? So that's how we start to distinguish it in the beginning. Good when I give you the food in place. Yes when I'm jumping away and having you chase it. And then later on, the dog will be releasing themselves. So the older dogs, when they understand this, If you say yes, they're going to jump at you. They're going to be like, give it up, right? They're not going to stay where they are. They're going to come to get it. And if you say good, they're going to sit there and look at you like, come on, bring it to me. Once they've got those two, now you can tell them they're right, and they know the difference between when they're being released out of the position and when they're not. And again, for these up-close things, it doesn't matter too much. But when we get to doing more complicated behaviors or behaviors at a distance or any of those things, then it really matters. So that was perfect. So the next thing is the sit. So she already offers a sit a lot. So what you're going to do is just hold food, and you're just going to walk backwards. And as you walk backwards, you're just going to lift up and towards your body, right? So one of the things that the dogs tend to do is, right, I have food, the dog's following, is you want to go up like this and lift up. Come on. Oh, hey, babe. She's like, come here. Following, lift up. Yes. Right? So, following, lift up. Yes. Yes. Right? And so by leaning this way and making my gesture kind of like this, she sits really upright. If I do this, see her move backwards out of my space because I'm leaning into her space, right? So when we do it, we want to kind of go this way. Yes. And then I release the dog that direction. You go ahead.
Okay. Twink, twink. Oops.
And so make this gesture kind of more like it's an obvious gesture. So she's following your hand. So there you go, right there. Now lift it. Perfect. And that should be, if you say yes, release out. Say good if you feed in place. So if you're there and you're going to give her the food in place, then say good and feed her. For this, because we want her to sit really upright, we're releasing her and going backwards, which makes her lean forward when she sits, which keeps her upright. Which again, if you were pet dog training, wouldn't make any difference. And that's you're saying yes and feeding in place, right? So again, and concentrate on making the mark and then producing the reward. So go ahead, lure her again. Just hold your hand in front of her face. Lure, lift it. Yes, move. Right, there you go. Perfect. And make sure you mark it before you move, right? Because what? Too early. Yeah, she wasn't sitting yet. Yes. And that's the same. See, she's starting to go yes, right? So she's starting to drop her hand at the same time. What you want is we want the behavior. Here you go. She follows it. I lift up. Yes. All right, see that little pause between the gesture? She did what I want. I said yes. Boom, I spun away. What you should think of is think of your reward marker like the shutter on a camera. So when you say yes, you should have just taken a picture of the exact behavior you're trying to reward. And then after you've taken the picture, you pay the dog for that fine portrait, right? If you start to move first, so the dog sits and you go, ooh, that's beautiful. So you start to move, the dog sees the movement, starts to lean forward, you say yes, and now you just rewarded the dog for starting to get up. So your picture, when you said yes, was them going, oh, I'm starting to get up. So you did not have a picture of the behavior you wanted. So think about it that way. The dog should be, when they hear the sound yes, should be doing the behavior you're trying to capture. And then the reward follows afterwards. So take that picture, then pay the dog, right?
Yes. The work you've seen in this short video is covered in detail in the video that I did with Michael Ellis titled The Power of Training Dogs with Food.